Welcome to the Divine Nature Podcast. Check out divinenature.net for more podcasts, videos, blogs, and commentary from a Christian and biblical worldview perspective. Yeah. Okay, so I'm back. And we're gonna finish this whole ordeal with Mr. Helitutor. Okay, we're going to. Sorry about that, folks. Let's go back to Mr.
I've already
Helitutor.
read all the scriptures for those of you
There he
here.
is.
I'll give you the list.
Okay, so we're gonna answer Mr. Helitutor. Mr. Helitutor, calm down. We're gonna answer your questions, and we're gonna get back to that. And where we left off was Exodus 21, 22. 21, 22. Okay, so here we go. Exodus 21, 22. Okay, and if a man sells his daughter as a female slave, she is not to go free as the male slaves do. If she is displeasing in the eyes of her master who designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He does not have authority to sell her to a foreign people because of his treachery to her. Because of his treachery to her. Sounds like looking out for her. Okay. Oh, come on. You got to be kidding. Okay. Hang on. I mean, I'm trying hard here. Okay. And if he designates her for his son, he shall do to her according to the custom of daughters. If he takes for himself another woman, he may not reduce her food, her clothing, or her conjugal rights. And if he will not do these three things for her, then she shall go out for nothing without payment of money. Okay? That means she owes him nothing. Bye-bye, I'm out, see ya. Okay? So notice how the female slave is not to be treated the same way as a male slave. She can't just go free the same way and just, be disregarded. Okay? Or discarded, just like that. Okay? Because, a female is not going to be able to fend for herself the same way a male is. She's a woman and needs to be protected. A man can fend for himself, but a woman can't. Just be let go to the world just like a man. Okay? If the master wants to change his mind about her being, he wants to change his mind about her being that he took her in to be his slave, then he has to let her be paid for. Let someone pay for her back and redeem her, like it says, and he can't sell her to just anyone. He can't sell her to like foreign people. Okay? This is to protect her from his treachery, as it says, right? If he designates her for his son, meaning marriage, okay, she automatically becomes a daughter. Okay? She becomes like a daughter. If the son takes on another woman, she has to be kept being fed, clothed, and have conjugal rights. Okay? If he refuses this for her, okay, she gets to go off for free without owing him nothing. No debts, no payments, bye, see ya. That's it. You see? Okay? So this is not as bad as the liberal religionists or liberal secularists want to make it out to be. Well, it's still pathetic, slavery in the scriptures. Now, please check out part one to this video where I started with other Bible difficulties. Okay, but nevertheless, concerning Exodus 21, 7, 11, it's not a walk through the park or a piece of cheesecake. This is still nevertheless historical fact of slavery and how it was in those days. Nevertheless, like I said, if he designates her for the son, designates her for if he designates her for the son, okay, she automatically becomes like a daughter. These are laws that were placed in to manage and to the pathetic circumstances of slavery in those times. Okay, so another one Mr. Helitutor brings up is Exodus 21:20 through 21. Okay, and if a man strikes his male or female slave with a rod and dies at his hand, he shall surely be punished. But if for a day or two he is able to stand, no punishment shall be taken, for he is his property. Okay, okay. Look at the verses before it, though. Look at go to verse 14, which most people looking at this never go to verse 14. If, however, a man acts presumptuously towards his neighbor, so as to kill him by deceit, you shall take him even from my altar, that he may die. Okay? Verse 16. He who kidnaps a man, whether he sells him or he is found in his hand, in his possession, shall surely be put to death. Okay? So much for slavery, folks. All right? If he's man stealing. Okay? Now look at verse 18. If men contend with each other, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die but remains in bed, if he gets up and walks outside on his staff, then he who struck him shall go unpunished. He shall only pay for his loss of time, and he shall take care of him until he is completely healed. Okay? Now, does that sound anything like Western slavery, chattel slavery? Okay? Think about it. Look at the regulations that are placed in the midst of a pathetic and desperate condition of slavery and people needing to sell themselves over in order to survive. Okay? Think about it. Now let's go to Ephesians 65 for Mr. Helitutor here. Okay? Ephesians 6:5. Slaves, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling in the integrity of your heart, as to Christ. Okay? Read the start of the chapter, though. Okay? This is how we're going to answer this. Read the start of the chapter. Notice that slavery was so intertwined within the society that it was connected to the very household along with familial roles. Within this law, there is side-by-side regulations for children and parents along with slaves. Slavery was intertwined with a way of life, property rights, and a means of paying back debts, staying alive and surviving for the slave and for the owner. It doesn't mean that it was endorsed by God. Just as rape, punishment, and crime and justice also had to exist, slavery wasn't about race, but about economy and survival. Okay? Children and parents. Look at this. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may be well with you, and that you may live long in the land. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Slaves, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling in the integrity of your heart, as to Christ. Not by the way of eye service or as man-pleasers, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, serving with good will as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good thing each one does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether slave or free. Okay? And masters, also for the masters, do the same things to them, giving up threatening, knowing that both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no partiality with him. You see that? There is no partiality. God doesn't care more for the master than the slave. Okay? This definitely lets you know that this was something that was intertwined into the society. Slavery was a consequence, not a plan or a pillar or an institution. Okay? It's just the way things were. And it was not like chattel slavery. When you do argue like it is, and you go back to the 20th century, you're showing your ignorance. Please cover up. Cover. Okay, let's go to 2 Timothy 6, verse 1 through 2 for Mr. Helitutor here. Okay, Mr. Helitutor, I'm about to answer you. 1 Timothy 6, 1 through 2. All who are under the yoke of slaves are to regard their own masters as worthy of all honor, so that the name of God and our doctrine will not be slandered. But those of you have believers as their masters, must not be disrespectful to them because they are brothers, but must serve them all the more because those who partake of the benefit are believers and beloved. Teach and exhort these things. Let's go a broader scope. Let's get a broader scope of this thing, slavery. Okay? Ephesians 6:9. And masters, do the same things to them, giving up threatening, knowing that both your master and yours is in heaven, and there is no partiality with him. Colossians 4:1. Masters, show your slaves what is right and fair, knowing that you have a master in heaven. Proverbs 30:10. Do not slander a slave to his master, lest he curse you and you be found guilty. Look at this, Proverbs 30:10. Look at this. Do not slander a slave to his master, lest he curse you and you be found guilty. Okay? If you slander your slave, a master can be found guilty, okay? And you be cursed. John 8:34. Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who commits sin is a slave of sin. And I will tell you now that that is the overarching content of slavery. This truly, truly the slave to sin. Romans 6:16. Do you not know that when you go on presenting yourselves to someone as slaves for obedience, you are slaves to the one whom you obey, either of sin leading to death or of obedience leading to righteousness? This is the slavery that matters most. Okay? Romans 6:17. But thanks be to God that though you were slaves of sin, you obeyed from the heart that pattern of teaching to which you were given over. Romans 6:18. And having been freed from sin, you became slaves of righteousness. Romans 6:20. For when you were slaves of sin, you were free in regard to righteousness. Mark 8:36. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his own soul? Right? What does it gain that you have freedom and you're not a slave? But if you don't know God, you forfeit your own soul. So slavery to sin, slavery and to live in darkness away from God is the worst slavery there is. 1 John 5:19. We know that we are of God and that the whole world lies in the power of the evil one. That's where we are before we're in God. We're under the power of the evil one. Romans 8:21, that the creation itself also will be set free from its slavery to corruption into the freedom of the glory of the children of God. You see, the creation itself, it needs to be set free from its slavery to corruption. That's Mr. Helitutor. Okay? 2 Corinthians 3:17. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. So there's no freedom unless the Spirit of the Lord is in you. Galatians 5:1. It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore stand firm and do not be subject again to the yoke of slavery. 2 Peter 2:19. Promising them freedom while they themselves are slaves of corruption. For by what a man is overcome, by this he is enslaved. Okay? Now he wants to go into, Mr. Helitutor brings up Luke 12:47 to 48. Okay? Let's do that. Let's go there now. Mr. Helitutor, I will answer you. Verse 47. And that slave who knew his master's will and did not get ready for act in accord with his will receive many beatings. But the one who did not know it and committed deeds worthy of a beating will receive but a few. For everyone who has been given much will be required. But to whom they entrusted him, of him they will ask all the more. Okay, again, let's look at the whole chapter, not just proof texting. Okay, be ready for his coming. This is the top of the chapter. The top of chapter, Luke chapter 12. Gird up your loins and keep your lamps lit, and be like men who are waiting for their master, like men who are waiting for their master when he returns for the wedding feast, so that they may immediately open the door to him when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those slaves whom the master finds awake and he comes. Truly I say to you that he will gird himself and serve, and have him recline at the table, and he will come up and wait on them. Check it out. The master in the same parable will find awake, and he will gird himself to serve and have him recline at the table. The master will serve the slave. Okay? Blessed are those slaves whom the master will find awake when he comes. Truly I say to you that he will gird himself to serve and have him recline at the table, and will come up and wait on them. Blessed is that slave when his master finds so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. Right? Right? So this isn't prophecy, but a parable and example. Be like men who are waiting for their master. That's speaking about all of us. So you either a slave of a bad master or a slave of a good master. I rather be a slave of a good master, which is God Almighty, and not the master of this current world, which is Satan. Context is everything, folks. Context is everything. Unfortunately, some people don't want to. They don't want true context. Okay, they wouldn't want people misrepresenting them this way, but they misrepresent in other areas in order to paint untruthful pictures of things they don't like. But it's oftentimes because of a rebellious spirit. But truth always shines on the darkness. Okay, that is my response to Mr. Helitutor. Okay, I hope that I know I rushed through these really bad. Luckily, I had written these things down beforehand, and hopefully you can run them back, go through these verses, recognize that, yeah, it was a terrible condition, it's an ugly circumstance, totally that it was, but it was not Western chattel slavery as people see, as the woke want to make it out to be. It was a terrible condition, and the Bible basically just records those conditions. It doesn't endorse it. It doesn't do any such thing. If anything, it tells us to move away from the even bigger overarching slavery that continues today. Okay, we've got slavery happening today in many lands. There are millions of people still stuck in slavery. If you actually look it up. There are many different countries where there's people that are sold to sexual slavery, slavery of labor, and all these things. And a lot of these people that are woke, that talk about former slavery, which of course, by the way, I must mention that Christianity put an end to Western slavery. It was the abolitionists in the Western world that did that, and they were Christian. They were, of course, as you saw in the text, that the Bible does not endorse slavery and says you cannot steal, you cannot take anyone. If he's found in your possession, you're going to die. Okay? So that is the truth. And you've got the naysayers who have a reason for not seeing the truth of proper and honest scholarship. But we know what that's about, don't we? Okay? So once again, thanks for joining me today in this part 2. And until next time, God bless. All right, you're listening to the Divine Nature Podcast, a blog and cultural commentary ministry dedicated to declare the gospel of Jesus Christ, to reach out to those who have ears to hear by the power of the Holy Spirit. Check out divinenature.net for updates on blogs, videos, and more podcasts. And don't forget to share if you care. Until next time, God bless.